Imagine this. A man is walking down a busy street, maybe coming back from work, maybe already in a bad mood. Suddenly, someone accidentally bumps into him. It's a small thing, could be an honest mistake. But in the next moment, without thinking, this man turns around and punches the other person right in the face. Boom. Violence, instant reaction. Now pause that scene, freeze it. Here's the big question. Why did he do that? At first, we might say, it was just anger. Or maybe he has a big ego and couldn't take it. Or maybe he had a bad childhood and he reacts aggressively to any threat. Or perhaps his testosterone levels were high. Or he was under stress. Or maybe it was something happening deep inside his brain in the parts he doesn't even control. And this exact moment is what Behave is all about. What does Sapolsky want us to ask? Instead of just asking, what did he do? Sapolsky wants us to ask, what happened in the last second before he acted? What was going on in his brain? What hormones were in his bloodstream today? What childhood experiences shaped his reactions? What kind of society or culture taught him how to respond to conflict? What genetic or evolutionary history made his brain wired this way? That one punch, not just a punch, was not just a punch. It was the final link, invisible chain of causes. Behavior is the end result of many layers. Sapolsky shows us that human behavior is like an onion. There are many layers behind each action. 1. Neurobiology, the brain's wiring. 2. Hormones and chemical signals. 3. Mood, sleep, and current physical state. 4. Past experiences, especially childhood. 5. Social situations and peer pressure. 6. Cultural norms and values. 7. Evolutionary patterns over thousands of years. When the man punched, it wasn't just about the bump. It was about everything that happened before that bump. From seconds ago to years ago. Let's reverse the scene layer by layer. To understand the behavior deeply, let's reverse time like a movie. 1 second before, his amygdala, a part of the brain, sensed a threat. His body flooded with adrenaline. He acted without thinking. Minutes before, he had an argument at work. He's still angry. Hours before, he skipped lunch, had too much coffee, and is low on energy. Days before, he's been under stress about money and sleep deprived. Years before, he grew up in a violent neighborhood where fighting back was a sign of strength. Decades before, his brain was shaped by genes and evolution that made quick aggression useful for survival in the past. So in that 1 second, when he threw the punch, all of this was acting through him. That's what Behave teaches us. Human behavior is not just a choice. It's a complex result of biology, psychology, society, and history. The main idea. In short, Behave helps us go deeper than the action. It helps us explore the why behind the behavior. Whether it's a kind act like helping someone, or a cruel one like hurting someone, Sapolsky wants us to stop, rewind, and ask, what built this behavior? When we ask that question honestly, we understand people better. We become more thoughtful, what makes us do the things we do? Why do some people act with kindness in difficult situations, while others explode with anger or violence? Most of us think behavior is just a personal choice. He's a good guy, she's aggressive, he's selfish, she's generous. But according to Robert Sapolsky, a world-renowned neuroscientist and biologist, behavior is not that simple. In his book, Behave, The Biology of Humans at Our Best and Worst, Sapolsky takes us on an incredible journey into the layers of human behavior. A journey through time, biology, psychology, and culture. He doesn't just ask, why did someone do this? He asks, what led to this moment? And more importantly, when did it start? The timeline of human behavior. Here's the amazing idea that Sapolsky presents. Every action we take, whether it's a hug, a lie, a punch, or a sacrifice, can be explained by a timeline of causes that stretch backward through time. Let's imagine you yell at someone. Sapolsky would break that behavior down like this. 1 second before, your brain made the decision. Your neurons fired. Certain parts of your brain took control. Maybe the emotional side beat the logical one. Minutes to hours before, your hormone levels were high. Maybe you were stressed. Maybe your blood sugar was low. Maybe you didn't sleep well last night. All of this affected your mood. Days to years before, your brain's wiring, how you respond to stress or anger, was shaped by your childhood experiences, trauma, or upbringing. Cultural and social level. Your behavior was also shaped by social rules, what your culture taught you about respect, pride, or conflict. Did you grow up being told to never back down, or to walk away from fights? Evolutionary history. And finally, your behavior is the result of thousands of years of evolution. Your ancestors survived by being aggressive or cautious, by forming alliances or protecting their tribe. So that one moment of yelling isn't just a reaction. It's the final domino falling after a long chain of biological, psychological, and cultural events. Sapolsky's unique style. What makes this book so powerful is how Sapolsky combines science with storytelling. He connects laboratory research with real-life examples. From primates in the jungle to humans in war zones, from childhood memories to courtroom decisions. And he does all this with humor, humility, and a deep desire to help us understand ourselves better. Not just to judge, but to reflect. What this book helps us see, instead of seeing people as just good or bad, Sapolsky helps us ask, what triggered this behavior? What shaped this person? What was going on in their body and mind? And could things have gone differently? This doesn't mean we excuse harmful behavior, but it does mean we begin to understand it, so we can change it, respond better, and create a more compassionate world. So in this video, we're going to break down Sapolsky's timeline. We'll move from the brain to hormones, to childhood, to society, and even to evolution, to understand what really drives human behavior. Get ready to rethink what you know about why people do what they do. 15 to 40. 1 second before the behavior, the brain in action. Let's zoom into the last second before you do something. Literally, the moment before you act. This is where your brain takes center stage. Imagine your brain as a powerful control center full of different departments that are constantly arguing, negotiating, and reacting. When you laugh, cry, scream, flirt, hit someone, or stop yourself from reacting, your brain is doing all the work behind the scenes. Now let's break it down. The main players in your brain. 1. Prefrontal cortex, the wise leader. This is the thinking part of your brain. It lives right behind your forehead and is responsible for decision-making, self-control, understanding what's right and wrong, planning for the future. The prefrontal cortex is like a calm, logical teacher who tells you, take a deep breath, think before you act. Is this really worth it? 2. Amygdala, the emotional alarm. The amygdala is small but powerful. It reacts super fast to anything that seems like a threat. It triggers fear, anger, aggression, panic. The amygdala is like a security guard that sometimes overreacts. Danger, attack, defend yourself now. 3. Dopamine system, the motivator. This system gives you the feeling of excitement, reward, motivation, pleasure. When you see your favorite food, get a like on your post, or win a game, dopamine says, that felt good. Let's do it again. So what happens 1 second before you act? All these parts of your brain are fighting for control. It's like a mental boxing match. The amygdala says, I'm angry, react now. The dopamine system says, that insult deserves revenge. You'll feel better if you clap back. The prefrontal cortex says, wait, calm down, don't do something you'll regret. And the one who wins that battle? That decides what you do in that moment. Real life example. Online insult. Imagine you're scrolling on Instagram. Someone leaves a nasty comment on your post. You look stupid. Nobody cares about your opinion. Instantly, your amygdala lights up. Who do they think they are? I'm going to reply with something even worse. Your dopamine system joins in. Yeah, that'll feel good. Get back at them. You'll show them who's boss. But then, your prefrontal cortex steps in. Stop. They want a reaction. Don't let them win. Just block or ignore. That single second between insult and action is where your brain decides what kind of person you're going to be in that moment. Why this matters. Sapolsky shows us that in those critical seconds before we act, we are not just choosing. We are balancing emotions, biology, and logic. Some people have a stronger prefrontal cortex. They can stay calm under pressure. Others may have a more reactive amygdala, especially if they've experienced trauma or constant stress. So next time someone cuts you off in traffic or says something hurtful, remember, your brain is having a debate inside your head, and whichever voice wins becomes your behavior. Would you like Hormones in Action? Perfect for your YouTube book summary of Behave. It continues the smooth flow from the brain into the body, using relatable examples to connect with your 16 to 40-year-old audience. 2. Hours to days before, Hormones in Action. So, we just explored what happens 1 second before you act, when your brain is making fast, emotional, or logical decisions. But what if we zoom out a little more? Let's go back a few hours, or even a day or two before you behaved a certain way. This is where your hormones start to play a powerful role. These invisible chemical messengers travel through your body and brain, silently preparing you for how you'll feel, react, and behave. Your brain can't act alone. Think of your brain like the driver of a car, but hormones are the fuel, the oil, the engine heat. They don't control the steering wheel, but they massively influence how the car performs. So even before your brain makes a decision, your hormones have already set the mood. Let's look at two of the most important ones Sapolsky talks about. 1. Testosterone, the aggression booster. Testosterone is commonly known as the male hormone, but everyone has it, just in different amounts. It can increase aggression, competition, risk-taking. But here's something surprising. Testosterone doesn't always cause aggression. Instead, it amplifies your reaction based on your social situation. If you feel challenged or disrespected, testosterone can boost your aggressive response. If you feel confident or in control, it might just make you more assertive, not violent. Example, imagine two guys playing a competitive video game. One wins, the other loses and throws the controller. That outburst? It could be driven by a surge of testosterone, especially if the loser felt humiliated. Cortisol, the stress hormone. Cortisol is released when you're under stress, physical or emotional. It can make you feel anxious, irritable, easily threatened, defensive. If your cortisol levels are high, your body goes into survival mode. You become more sensitive to things around you. Even small annoyances can feel like big threats. Example, you didn't sleep well last night. You rushed to work. You skipped breakfast. You're running on low energy and high cortisol. Now, your coworker makes a harmless joke, and instead of laughing, you snap at them. That wasn't just you being moody. That was your cortisol preparing you to defend yourself, because your body thought you were under attack. Hormones are not just random. Here's the key. Hormones don't just float around randomly. They respond to your life events, your thoughts, your memories, and even your sleep, food, and social environment. They are like background music playing in your body, sometimes calm and peaceful, sometimes loud and intense. And that music sets the tone for how your brain will act when the moment comes. Brain's hormones equals behavior. So think about it. Your brain might be trying to stay logical, but if your hormones are sending emergency signals, your brain might get overwhelmed. This is why Sapolsky says, your behavior today may have been created yesterday. Why this matters. You can't fully understand someone's behavior just by watching what they do. You have to ask, did they sleep well? Are they under stress? Are their hormone levels spiking? Did something happen recently that pushed their body into survival mode? Because a calm brain in a stressed body might still act out in ways that surprise you. So before you judge someone for overreacting, or even before blaming yourself for being emotional, ask, could it be my hormones reacting to something I didn't notice? And that brings us to... Here's a deep and engaging explanation of the section 3. Adolescent years, the role of childhood and upbringing. Written in a smooth storytelling tone with relatable examples and simple language. Perfect for a 10 to 20 minute YouTube book summary aimed at ages 16 to 40. Adolescent years, the role of childhood and upbringing. Let's take another step back in the timeline. Not just hours or days before a behavior, but years before. To truly understand why people act the way they do, Sapolsky says we have to go all the way back to childhood and adolescence. The years when our brain, our beliefs, and our sense of right and wrong are being built. Because here's the truth. No one is born kind, rude, helpful, or violent. We learn how to behave by watching, experiencing, and surviving. Still under construction. Did you know your brain isn't fully developed until your mid-20s? Especially the prefrontal cortex, the part that controls decision-making, impulse control, and long-term thinking. That means during your teenage years, you're full of strong emotions. You crave acceptance and identity. You copy what you see around you, especially from adults. And whatever you experience during this sensitive time gets wired into your brain. How childhood shapes us. Let's compare two kids growing up in very different homes. Kid A, raised in a violent or neglectful home, grows up watching adults shout, hit, or ignore each other, learns that anger equals power and silence equals survival, may develop high stress levels and a hyperactive amygdala, constantly on alert. Trusting others becomes difficult. Showing weakness feels dangerous. Now fast forward to when Kid A becomes a teenager. They may become aggressive, defensive, or withdrawn. Not because they're bad, but because they're trained by their environment to expect danger and defend themselves first. Kid B, raised in a loving, supportive home, grows up being listened to and cared for, sees parents handling problems calmly and showing empathy, learns that kindness is safe and emotions are okay, develops healthy stress responses and better emotional control. As a teen, Kid B is more likely to think before reacting, trust people more easily, offer help to others. Again, not because they're naturally good, but because they were taught that compassion works. Real life example. Same school, different homes. Imagine two students in the same school, same class. Student 1 is calm, helpful, and always ready to listen. Student 2 is loud, aggressive, and often gets into fights. A teacher might say, why can't he just behave like the first one? But what they don't see is, student 1 goes home to hugs, dinners, and stories. Student 2 goes home to shouting, blame, or complete silence. The classroom behavior is just the surface. Underneath are years of wiring, built from what the child saw and felt growing up. It's not just the parents. While family is a major influence, Sapolsky reminds us that the entire environment matters. Teachers, neighborhood safety, peer groups, societal norms, media exposure. Even poverty or chronic fear in early years can literally reshape a child's brain, especially how they process stress and emotions. But I know people who had a tough childhood and turned out great. Yes, and Sapolsky agrees. He explains that some people find mentors who guide them. Others develop resilience through small but powerful positive experiences, like one teacher who believed in them, or they discovered new models of behavior later in life. But it's rare, and it takes a lot of internal and external support to break out of what you were programmed to believe growing up. Childhood is the foundation, so the way we act as adults, how we love, fight, trust, or forgive, has roots that often go back 10, 15, even 20 years. As Sapolsky says, you can't explain adult behavior without first understanding the child who lived through it. Why this matters. When someone is aggressive, avoidant, or overly emotional, it's easy to judge them in the moment. But what if, instead of asking what's wrong with them, we asked, what happened to them? Because behind every behavior, there's often a story from childhood still echoing today. Let's zoom out now. We've talked about what happens seconds before an action, hours before, even years before. But what if I told you, sometimes the reason someone behaves a certain way has nothing to do with their brain or childhood, it's just the culture they live in. Sounds strange? Let's break it down. Culture equals the invisible rules we follow. Culture is like an invisible operating system running in the background of our lives. It tells us what's acceptable, what's respectful, what's normal. And the crazy part, most of the time we don't even realize we're following these cultural rules until we see someone from another culture doing it differently. Example 1. Speaking loudly. Let's say you're in a group conversation. Someone starts talking very loudly and confidently. In the United States, you might think, wow, this person is so confident and enthusiastic. But in Japan or Scandinavia, people might feel uncomfortable. Why are they being so loud and aggressive? Same behavior, different interpretations. Why? Because different cultures have different expectations. Example 2. Talking back to elders. In India, China, or many African cultures, disagreeing with elders is often seen as disrespectful, even if you're right. But in Western cultures, like Germany, Australia, or Canada, respectfully challenging someone, even a teacher or elder, is encouraged. It shows you're thinking for yourself. So if a child raised in Germany argues back, they might be praised for independence. But if the same child did that in a traditional Indian household, probably grounded for a week. Example 3. Family versus individual. Some cultures are collectivist. They teach that the group, especially family, comes first. Examples: Japan, China, India, Latin America. Others are individualist. They teach that personal freedom and identity matter most. Examples: USA, Canada, UK, Australia. Now imagine, in a collectivist culture, someone skips a party to take care of their grandparents, seen as loyal and respectful. In an individualist culture, someone chooses to travel alone across the world at age 18, seen as brave and independent. Neither is right or wrong. They're just shaped by the stories, values, and traditions of their culture. Culture shapes even deep emotions. Believe it or not, even emotions like guilt, pride, shame, or love can be shaped by where you're from. Sapolsky gives examples of how. Shame is a major emotion in Eastern cultures. People care deeply about how others perceive them. Guilt is more common in Western cultures. People care about their own internal moral compass. So, two people might feel totally different after making the same mistake. One thinks, what will people think of me? The other thinks, how could I do that? Again, the behavior stems from a cultural lens. Culture and the brain are linked. Now here's what's wild. Sapolsky explains that culture doesn't just teach us behavior, it can shape how the brain wires itself during development. Yes, culture can literally influence your biology. Because what we see, hear, and experience every day gets reinforced by our surroundings. It becomes habit, belief, and identity. Real-life insights. Ever visited a new country and felt confused about how people act? Like, why is no one making eye contact? Why do they take off their shoes before entering? Why is hugging awkward here? That's culture clash in action. You're seeing how behavior is judged through cultural filters. So next time someone seems weird or rude, maybe they're not. Maybe they're just following a different set of invisible rules. Key takeaway. Culture doesn't just decorate our lives with language, music, or festivals. It builds the foundation for how we behave, how we judge others, what we believe is right or wrong. And Sapolsky wants us to remember, when we ask, why did that person act like that? The answer might not be in their brain, but in their culture. Evolution. Thousands of years of programming made perfectly for your 10 to 20-minute YouTube book summary of Behave by Robert Sapolsky. It includes a relatable tone, storytelling, real-life examples, and simple science for your audience aged 16 to 40. 5. Evolution. Thousands of years of programming. Now let's go way back. Not just years or decades, but thousands of years ago. Back to a time when humans didn't have smartphones, cities, or even language. We're talking about the time of our ancestors, the early humans who lived in caves, hunted animals, and fought just to survive every day. Here's the question Sapolsky explores. Why do we feel emotions like fear, love, jealousy, and loyalty, even today? Why do we react in certain ways instinctively without thinking? The answer? Evolution. Evolution equals ancient survival programming. Our brains didn't just appear overnight. They evolved slowly over millions of years, shaped by the environment, dangers, and needs of our ancestors. Back then, life was harsh and unpredictable. If you wanted to survive, your brain had to spot danger instantly, protect your family or tribe, be alert to threats, fight or run when needed, form strong bonds with others. So over time, the behaviors that helped people survive were passed down genetically. That's why we still carry those behaviors today. Example, fear of the dark. Let's say you're walking alone at night. It's dark. You hear a sound. Even if you know there's no danger, your heart races, you feel tense. Why? Because thousands of years ago, the dark was actually dangerous. Predators hunted at night. Enemies attacked under cover of darkness. You couldn't see well, so your brain had to stay alert. So now, even though most of us don't face wild animals anymore, our brains still respond to darkness with fear. It's like ancient software running on modern hardware. Example, jealousy in relationships. Here's another one. Why do people feel jealousy in relationships? From an evolutionary point of view, jealousy evolved to protect partnerships. If your partner left you, your chances of raising healthy children and passing on your genes would drop. So the brain developed emotional alarms, like jealousy, to protect those bonds. Today, even though we live in modern societies, that emotional wiring still kicks in. It's not always rational, but it's ancient. Example, helping others. Why do people help each other, even when it's risky? From a survival perspective, helping others in your tribe or family increased everyone's chances of staying alive. So generosity, empathy, and loyalty became evolutionary strengths. Even today, we feel good when we help someone. That's dopamine and oxytocin, reward chemicals getting released. It's evolution's way of saying, yes, good job. Helping others better for survival. Evolution doesn't care about happiness. Here's a hard truth from Sapolsky. Evolution didn't shape us to be happy. It shaped us to survive and reproduce. That's why we sometimes feel anxious for no clear reason. We overreact to small threats. We care deeply about social approval and rejection. Because in the wild, being alert and socially accepted meant staying alive. So when you feel nervous before a presentation or overthink a small mistake, that's not weakness. It's just old brain wiring reacting to modern situations. Have modern life, ancient brain. One of the biggest ideas in Behave is this. We're living in a 21st century world with a brain that evolved for the Stone Age. That creates tension. For example, social media triggers tribal instincts like comparison, jealousy, and group behavior. Arguments online can feel like survival threats, even though no one's physically near you. Office stress can feel like being hunted, because your brain doesn't know the difference between a boss yelling and a lion growling. Understanding this helps us be more self-aware. It's not that we're weak or irrational, we're just carrying ancient instincts into a modern world. Key takeaway. Many of the emotions and behaviors we experience, like fear, love, jealousy, aggression, empathy, they didn't come from now. They came from then, from our ancestors. They were useful for survival. That's why evolution kept them. But today, in our complex and fast-changing world, we need to understand those instincts so we can decide when to listen to them and when to override them. Would you like me to continue to the next major idea from the book? The final wrap-up usually connects all these layers, from brain